I'm going to show you how to customize the After Effects workspace. And we're going to start from scratch here. We're going to open up a new project, which will be very similar to a lesson I'm going to do on starting a new project. But I want to do this here because I want to show you how to simplify that startup process. Now, a caveat. We're working here in 1280 by 720. That's the resolution of this screen. Now, 1280 by 720 is not the optimal resolution for After Effects. In fact, Adobe recommends the minimum size is 1920 by 1080 or HD. But we work at 1280 by 720 here at Pluralsight because we need to have our videos sort of be a middle ground for the various different platforms that people watch our videos on. So we are in 1280 by 720, which means my workspace will look different than yours probably. Nevertheless, let's get started here. I've got my icon here in the desktop. You might have yours in the dock or the taskbar or elsewhere. But to get started, just double click on the icon here. It opens up the splash screen by Alexei Romanovsky. And then opens up After Effects with this Start panel visible in the front. Now right off the bat, you don't need to see the Start panel. It's kind of an extra layer of complexity. And I'm going to set it up such that it doesn't open up again when I start up After Effects the next time. And I suggest you do this too. I'm going to close it down now. And I'm going to change the preferences here in After Effects. To access preferences in Windows, you go to Edit Preferences. On a Mac, it's After Effects Preferences. Go down here. And you can click on any one of these, but you're going to end up going to General. Once you get to the preferences, you can change which panel you're in by clicking on one of these, but we're going to stay in General here. Now, there are all sorts of preferences you can set in After Effects, and changing them is kind of an advanced thing to do, so I'm not going to talk about it in any detail here in this course. But I do want to show you one thing, and that is this little button down here, Show Start Screen at Startup. I'm going to uncheck that and click OK. And now that Start Screen is going to go away. So now I want to talk about how you can customize this workspace. Now, there are several things you can do. You can change the size of the frames. You can move panels from one frame to another. You can add panels. You can take panels away. You can do all of those things on the fly as you need to do them. And then when you closed on After Effects remembers the state you were in when you last worked in it. So when you come back, it's going to be in that exact same state with those same panels and the same locations you put them in. But if you're working on a computer where other people are going to share your computer and they might want to have different workspaces, it's best if you want to customize a workspace to save it as your own. So you can always come back and open that up. On my computer, I don't need to do that. I can always come back to the workspace I last used. And also the thing is, changing a workspace is no big deal. It's fairly easy to do. And lots of times you'll do it on the fly as needed as you're working on something inside After Effects. But that said, I'm going to show you my standard startup workspace. I'm going to start by getting rid of libraries over here. Libraries is this product from Adobe where you can get stock footage. And normally I just don't have that in my workspace because I don't want this thing, which is basically an advertisement for something that I don't need, showing up inside my workspace. But in this pre-release version of After Effects, the library is not working. So it's causing me to get this kind of spinning cursor here, which is really distracting. So I'm going to get rid of the libraries panel for two reasons then. And the way you get rid of a panel is by clicking on this little menu here, that little three-line thing, and choosing Close Panel. All right, that takes care of that little issue. And now if I want to go back to the Libraries panel, I can always go up here to this Workspace menu up here. Standard is currently highlighted, that's the one I'm in right now. And click this menu there, and then choose Reset to Saved Layout. If I do that, you'll see the library comes back. We'll click on that and get rid of it again. All right. But now if I were to close down After Effects and open it back up again, the library panel would not show up. I want to add a panel now. For some reason, when the Adobe engineers made the standard workspace, they did not include the Effect Controls panel, which is a very important part of the workflow inside After Effects. So I'm going to add the Effect Controls panel to my workspace. To do that, I go to Window, and the Effect Controls panel is not in this alphabetical group up here. It's down here in the Important group down there. There's Effect Controls. I click that. It's now added over here in this frame. That's the standard location for it. Now that's basically all I need. There are other panels that I would work with periodically, but those panels appear when I need them and they appear automatically. So for example, when I work with the Type tool, the character and the paragraph panels show up automatically. I'll show you what I mean by going back to the project panel here. I'm going to start a new composition, which is something I'm going to discuss in a separate lesson, but I'll just do that real quickly here by clicking on the new comp icon there, and clicking OK. Now I have this new comp here, and if I click on the Type tool here right there, watch what happens over here on the right-hand side. I click that, and boom, I have two new panels, the character panel and the paragraph panel, which, by the way, just shoved my timeline to the left. Not something that I particularly want to happen. So that'll happen automatically, and when I'm done working with the Type tool, those will stay there. They won't go away. And it happens because of this little switch up here, Auto Open Panels. That's turned on. But you'll notice if I click on the Selection tool over here, that little switch is not visible anymore, so you may not know that it's going to show up when you click on it. If I click on a brush tool or a paint tool, like this one over here, that'll open up the brush panel and the paint panel right there. And right now, if I click on the chevron, you'll notice that the character panel and the paragraph panels are now gone because they were replaced by these two panels. All right, if I don't want a panel here crowding my space, I can move it. You can move it by clicking on the name and dragging. If I make this panel active and click on the name, paint, and drag, you'll notice that you start getting rectangles or trapezoids depending on where you drag it. A rectangle means that if you drop it here, it's going to go inside this frame. A trapezoid means you're going to create a new frame with that panel in it. So I want to move that paint panel up in here, like that, and let go. And that means that my timeline now extends out to the end. So you can move panels around, you can create new frames, and you can put panels inside existing frames. You can also change the size of the frames. Just hover your cursor between two frames like this, you get a double-headed arrow. You can change the size by dragging it left and right, or down here, up and down. And this comes in handy sometimes when you want to see more layers here in the timeline, or you want to expand the view of your comp panel, like so. And this is something, again, you can do just temporarily, and then you can always move it around and go back to the way you had it before. If you hover your cursor at an intersection like this, you get a four-headed arrow like that. Move 3 things at once or 4 things at once, depending, like that. Now, if I close After Effects and come back, these panels will be visible just like this. This workspace will be saved automatically by After Effects, and it'll come back like this, which is no problem generally. But I'm going to change things a little bit here and get rid of a couple things to set up my standard workspace. So I'm going to click on the Brushes panel here, make it active, close it down by clicking Close Panel. Click on the Paint one, close that one down as well. I now have Effects and Presets there, which is all I want. I've got my effect controls over here. I've got the panel set up to the right size for my purposes. So I'm going to save this workspace as a personal workspace. And to do that, I go up to Standard here, which is currently open, click the menu, and I want to save this as a new workspace, or I can save changes to this workspace. If I save changes to this workspace, that means whenever I come back to After Effects and I go to Standard and I say Reset the Saved Layout, it'll go to the one that I changed, which is what I want to do here, save changes to this workspace. So that means when I open up After Effects, it'll come to this. If I change things, I can always come back to this workspace by going to that little menu again and saying Reset to Saved Layout. But let's say you are working in a system where you've got multiple people on your computer and you want to save your own personal workspace. Well, to do that, go up here again, click on that and say Save as New Workspace. Then you can name it, like Jeff's Workspace. And click OK. And that'll show up in a list of workspaces. This chevron tells you that there are more tabs here than you can see. So I'm going to click on this little chevron, and there are all the various workspaces. Mine is at the top here, but there are more tucked away down here. These all panels, animation, many more here, but mine's not fitting because it's like the 5th one in the group here. So if I click on Edit Workspaces, I can decide which ones will be on the bar and which ones will be in the overflow menu. And mine is technically in the bar, but it's the last one, so it's shoved off to the side because my screen resolution is 1280 by 720. But I can take, let's say, Libraries and pull that one down like that. Small screen, pull it down like that. And if I want a different workspace here from the bottom, I can move it to the top up here by taking Effects, let's say, and making that to be the 3rd thing like that. And clicking OK. And now mine will be the 4th one, and the effects will be this one here. Now what do these various workspaces mean? Well, if you click on them, you'll see that they just are different panels. That's all. It's not so critical necessarily that you have these things, but that's the way that works. You can go from one workspace to another by choosing them over here or choosing them up here. Now I've created this new workspace, this personal workspace, but I don't really need to save it because the standard workspace is fine for me. So I'm going to go back to this little chevron here, go down to Edit Workspaces, and select this one and delete it. Simple as that. And click OK. And now I'm going to go back to Standard, which is the one that I like to work in. So that's how you can customize a workspace, save a workspace such that when you come back to After Effects, it's going to be the way you left it, or save your own personal workspace.